About 25 years ago, MailCare started the world's first support group for men diagnosed under the age of 50. Prostate cancer is a disease that barely knows an age group. And one of the prime examples, a wonderful man named Michael. He comes to us from Texas. And Michael, hello. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You were diagnosed at what age?
So I always say I was diagnosed on accident because I had no symptoms at all. I was diagnosed at age 36. Had moved from Houston to Austin for what I believed to be a job promotion. I mean, it was a job promotion, but in hindsight, I really feel like I was moving here to save my life because I've been going to the doctor regularly in Houston. And obviously, because I didn't meet the recommendation, no doctor had ever talk to me about PSA or prostate cancer. I didn't know that it existed in my family at the time, so I never brought it up. Of course, she asked about family health history, so I shared what I knew, which was that breast cancer existed on both sides of my family, hypertension, things of that nature, but never brought up prostate cancer. But she just elected when she did my blood work to test my PSA levels, even though I was only 36. And sure enough, that's how we got alerted that something was going on. We tested my PSA again after that first 30-day round, and the numbers had come down a little bit, but not enough to her liking. So she elected to put me on another round of the antibiotics for another 30 days. Well, so I did that second round, and so now she's testing my PSA the third time. It was higher than it had been initially. I was really in tune with my body. I was the healthiest I had ever been at that time, actually. So I just felt like it could, I'm doing everything they're telling me to do to rule out. So when she said, I'm going to send you to a urologist, I just thought, I didn't dig too much into it. I went to the urologist. I had a consultation with the urologist. It was maybe a week later to have the biopsy. The word biopsy, I didn't have no clue what that even really meant until I was on the table getting the biopsy. My Gleason score was a 7. I can't remember if it was 4+3 or 3+4, but I know it was a 7. But my PSA, I'd have to go back and look at the chart, but I know maybe it was 1 point something, or I can't remember.
No worries, no worries. The idea that you had prostate cancer as a guy in his 30s,
Yeah.
and you know, it's not something we pay attention to in our 20s or 30s, which is fine unless we have a family member. I mean, there are tons of different types of cancers. I mean,
True.
even today, there are cancers I haven't a clue about. So what did you learn vis-a-vis you being a black man and having prostate cancer in your 30s?
I mean, from a black man perspective, I think, navigating that, I will say that prior to going through this particular instance, I was going to the doctor regularly. So I had been going to the doctor regularly probably since 2004, which is when I met my wife. And I'll say that's part of the reason why I was going regularly, because she helped me to see, like, you have insurance, you should at least go to the doctor once a year. I actually didn't want that urologist to be the one to operate on me, because I knew once I was diagnosed I was going to have some sort of treatment. But there was an issue with a copay that I shouldn't have had to pay, and the doctor didn't want to see me to even give me the night that I was diagnosed. The doctor didn't want to see me. So that's all tied into that experience. The doctor didn't want to see me because they felt like I should pay this copay. And I'm saying, this visit is not for a service to be rendered. I'm coming here because a service was. I'm coming here to get results from a service that was rendered. So I shouldn't have to be paid. And I didn't pay the copay. But the thing was, the urologist didn't want to see me and my family that night. Finally, because my wife was so adamant, the doctor needs to come out and at least be the one, because they had actually handed my results. They slid them under at the little check-in desk. Yeah,
Yeah.
no
Oh,
envelope,
wow.
just on a sheet of paper. Yep. Right. So for me, when they were sliding that paper under the thing, to give me the results, I was like, okay, sweet. I figured I couldn't have cancer if they're sliding the results this way, but it was my wife who said no. Ask the receptionist, please tell the doctor he at least owes us to give us the paper himself. And that's how the receptionist ended up coming back and saying, okay, have a seat. The doctor said he'll see you in a moment. And we waited maybe 40 minutes, and then they put us in a room, and we waited maybe 30 more minutes. And then the urologist came in, and I had my children playing at my feet, and he just said it so quickly that I actually didn't hear it. Only reason I knew something bad happened is because I looked to my left, and my wife was crying and she was rubbing my back. And I said, "Did I miss something?" And he said, "Yes, yes, you have." Initially, it was stage one, but once, I was diagnosed in November 2018 and I had surgery in June 2019. So once my prostate was removed and dissected, it was found that it was actually an aggressive stage two. So,
So everyone listening to this hears that story, and they're all feeling undoubtedly the way I am at this moment, which is severe anger towards your doctor.
sure, for sure.
What did that do to you vis-a-vis trust in any doctor?
Well, I mean, I've had so many good doctors, and as a Black person, I always tell people in my family and everything, just because a doctor is Black doesn't mean they're going to be a good doctor, or that's just the same that just because a doctor is white or Hispanic that they won't be a good doctor. I have a Black primary doctor right now, but I've never had a Black doctor, and I've had some awesome doctors. The urologist who ended up operating on me, incredible human being. I mean, so it just helped to prove why it's so important to be an advocate for yourself, because you're not going to all every time it's you're not gonna always find a doctor that jives well with you or that you feel comfortable with, or that you trust. And you need to be aware that you don't have to stick with that doctor. You're well within your right to, pursue another doctor. And so, I filed a grievance with the Board of Urology on that urologist. But the second guy, Dr. Eric Giesler, who I'm also very proud to say his name, amazing doctor. When my wife and I visited him after we were referred to him, he came into the room. He rolled in on like a little rolling chair, and he kind of looked like Michael J. Fox, he's like a younger doctor, and he has his blazer on and he's looking at me and my wife as he's talking to us. He's looking us in our eyes. I mean, he is, and he's talking and he's asking us questions, and he's got a plan already. He rolls to go make copies, and as soon as the door clicks when he leaves, me and my wife looked at each other and we're like, "That's the one." We also know best too as patients, right? And so we have to be able to learn to be comfortable with advocating for ourselves and navigating these spaces and realizing that we have more of a voice than we think we do.
Indeed. And part of the saving grace, so to speak, of the journey so far, as you're describing it, is that your wife was sitting right by you and speaking out.
1,000,000%, 1,000,000%.
Yeah. Well, sort of an obvious answer coming, but I mean, would you suggest that everyone show up with someone else, a spouse or a friend?
Yes, I would 100% suggest that, because for me, I mean, I think I'm very articulate. I know how to, comprehend what's going on, but I really feel like my wife is such a good, she's incredible with asking questions. I think sometimes we can't always hear everything because it's just we're trying to process, and this is us, right? So we need somebody who can be there from a different perspective and can listen from that standpoint and just kind of like lean in and cover us when we might be. Sometimes I might space out in the middle of a doctor's appointment, like I might just, and my wife can continue the conversation.
Tell us now around the treatments that you're receiving now, if anything, or what you actually ended up choosing.
So yeah, no treatment. I've been disease free since June 2019, which is when I had the surgery, June 13, 2019. I had a radical prostatectomy. My team consistently, they would tell me like, "We think you're going to do so well with surgery if you choose surgery. We think you are an excellent candidate for surgery because you're so young. You're in shape. We've never operated on someone your age, but we really think you're going to do good if you choose surgery. And we think that's the best option." I did see a radiologist, in case I wanted to do, like chemo or something like that, radiation. But I ended up going with surgery because I knew the cancer was contained in my prostate. And for me, it just, yeah, I'm younger. We thought we were done having kids. We did kind of think about freezing my sperm a little. We thought we didn't go through with it, but we thought about it. But so I ended up choosing surgery. So I had a radical prostatectomy on June 13th, and I've been having my PSA checked every 3 months. Sometimes I'll go to 6 months, but I try to just do 3 months just to like stay ahead in case it starts to go up.
Hmm.
And it's been undetectable since that time. I've just been a little blessed that I haven't had anything that I can immediately identify as being a racist, being tied to racism in any way. On my cancer journey or before then, I've always had, good doctors. And aside from the urologist, that I shared about, I haven't had an issue with a doctor, you know. It could also be because maybe I think that in some cases doctors may treat you better just in general when they can tell that you're a little bit more well versed and that you kind of come to the table with more of an expectation out of them. I never felt like, oh, but I do know a lot of people in my community feel that way. Certainly, my parents' ages and up, but also people my age. There's kind of like this cultural thing. There is this cultural mistrust of healthcare based upon, Tuskegee and different things that we know have happened and stories that we hear about, Black women and childbirth and all these different things. And so it doesn't help in our communities.
Vis-a-vis prostate cancer, you're a younger man. Do you think there's a sense of ageism that you're experiencing in your journey?
Well, I will say, I mean, it's funny you say that. I will say when I was first diagnosed, I mean, I knew high level that like, why I kept saying to myself, like, wow, like people are going to be really tripping when they realize I have cancer because this is not what my age group, to your point, is not what people really think of when they think of cancer. I also thought immediately, the same night driving home from being diagnosed, I told my wife, I know that I'm not the typical patient that you think of when you think of cancer in any way, right? And I told her that same night, I have to use that in a way that kind of like advances education and awareness. I didn't know what that would look like, but that has to be my contribution for being, and even as terrible as that situation was with that urologist, just finding, I knew then I had a sense that we found this out earlier, right? We found this out earlier than later. And I felt like that first night, I felt like, well, that's a plus. So I have to, speak up and speak out, as a patient so that people will listen, especially because I know it may get their attention a little more when they see me, right? So at the same time, maybe after a week or two, I just started feeling like, wow, I feel real isolated in this.
And,
So, but
of those
that would
60,
be the only instance I would speaking of what to your point about the age thing.
because part of the problem of that we solved, or at least Mail did, with the prostate cancer for younger men support group network,
Yeah, good.
is that, if you're in a room where everybody's checking their Medicare cards, it's a different quality of life issue
Yeah,
presentation. You're starting your life. You're, moving forward, wondering what school your kid will go to, kids.
yeah,
You're enjoying your wife's company. She's enjoying yours. Gay men are enjoying each other's husband, and people who are single are ever hopeful that they'll meet someone to be in love with and that will
yeah.
share their love with them. When you're 70 years old, it's a different frame of mind. And, in that respect, in a way, and it sort of harkens back to where you're saying you don't have a rare disease. I mean, technically you don't, and good that standard of care kind of treatment's been successful for you. And let's pray it stays that way. But you are a rare case, as are most men diagnosed in their 30s, in that everything except perhaps the way the cancer metastasizes and all the approaches to that is different for you. You're a man, as other men who are looking at life in an entirely different way than a man in their 60s, 70s, or 80s. Is that fair to say?
That's fair for sure.
Yeah. And it's not like a negative, it's just a difference. You are a younger man, and that's really good, but it's not going to, you'll have different challenges in
Yes.
your prostate cancer journey. How have you been meeting with men your age and sharing your story?
So, well, a big way so actually, the urologist the second referred urologist that I ended up connecting with as a result of what happened with the first one, Dr. Eric Giesler, I actually started mentoring newly diagnosed patients kind of randomly. He actually called, maybe he texted me or he called me on my cell phone maybe 3 weeks after my surgery and was like, hey, I've got this patient, he's younger like you and he's having a tough time. And I just really, do you think you feel comfortable kind of talking him through it? And I thought, well, of course, yeah, I would love to do that. I never thought about doing it prior to that, but I thought it was a great idea. I would love, being able to share my experience that in a way that can offer hope to another man who's about to go through the journey.
What are the things you say to these guys? And what are the questions that they ask you?
Well, I mean, most guys want to know about, how it's going to affect them sex wise. I mean, to be honest, you know what I mean? And for me, like I say, my journey has been stellar. I mean, I haven't none of the side effects. I haven't had any of the side effects. So, I always share those things with them to give them hope, especially if they're young, because I feel like it has to do with me being younger and that the cancer had metastasized or things like that. So I share that with them to give them hope. I mean, that's really what stands. I mean, most of the time, it's not even them asking questions. They're just kind of like talking, or sometimes they're quiet, or, sometimes they just need somebody to be on the phone with them. And like, you know, and then I explain the funny stories that I've had with, finding out, I mean, I didn't even realize that you wouldn't ejaculate. Like, I didn't realize that until I went to see the radiologist randomly, and the radiologist is just talking. He's like, yeah, because when you have a dry ejaculation. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, well, you're not gonna. I'm like, really? And so, I share that with them just to let them know, like, I was in the same mind. I to turn it into a joke too. You got to make fun a little bit, honestly. And so, but mostly just keeping up with them. Most of the time, they haven't even started treatment yet. Like, they just found out. And so being there with them when they do start treatment, or even after their treatment, when they're saying, yeah, I'm doing great, or I've had a couple of guys that have had some recurrences, so they've had to go back, But for me, it's like a spiritual thing to be able to mentor or connect with another guy who is dealing with things in their mind that you couldn't. Like, for me, I didn't have anybody. So for me, it feels really good to know that I can be that person for someone, because you can have family all around you, but nobody can understand this situation other than someone else who's been through it. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. That we connect.
It sounds like knowing what's up is a good piece of treatment. I
For
mean,
sure.
I mean, in the support groups, whether it's male care or any of these other, I mean, the key thing, or the main thing people talk about is, like, aside from sex and urinary dysfunction and that kind of
Yes.
stuff,
Yes.
the doctor didn't tell me this, or the doctor didn't tell me that, you know, and it revolves around, like, the doctor didn't tell me I'd be impotent or without
Yeah.
ejaculate.
Kind of like arm yourself with questions. You make use of the internet. Google what are the questions I should ask my doctor at my first appointment for prostate cancer diagnosis. And let those things help you, because you do want to go in asking questions. I mean, we can't put it all on the doctor. I agree, doctors should be sharing more, and doctors likely will start to share more once they see how inquisitive you are and that you're asking questions. But let's not go in being fully, giving everything to the doctor and not asking any questions, and just going in just to listen to what the doctor said. We can't do that. We have to drive this ship as much as the doctor. So, that's what I would say. Definitely go in with some questions. Take someone with you who doesn't mind asking questions as well, who's writing down notes while the doctor's talking. These things are important. I think doctors, when they see all of that happening, they're gonna kind of, even if they, I'm hoping it's not a, there's unconscious bias that exists. I'm hoping that's not a bias thing. Maybe a doctor feels like they're telling you everything, maybe, but you yourself know things that are important to you, and you have to ask those questions. However it is, it doesn't have to sound a certain way. You can ask them in complete layman's terms, but as long as you ask them, as long as because the doctor is just going to usually say, well, do you have any questions for me? Even if you wait until the doctor's done talking, you need to have some questions, in your bag that you can pull out and ask the doctor, and make sure you take or record the conversation or take notes. Yeah.
As if, like, a miracle just happened again. I
Yeah.
answered all of your questions, when
Yeah.
we know that's not true. I mean, and it may just be that the patient hasn't generated enough questions in that moment, or thought,
Right.
or understood what the
Or they
doctor
need
was
time
saying.
to think over it. That's
Yeah,
understandable. But
because
there's usually more than one touch point. So at least one or two of those touch points, to your point, maybe not the first appointment, maybe you're too overwhelmed. I get that. I do get that. But at least express to the doctor, I will have some questions. I just need to kind of think over everything. and when we meet next time, then I'll have questions for you.
Michael, thank you very much for speaking with us today. And, it's a great joy to know that you are in the world, you know, helping yourself, helping your family, and helping others. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Likewise.